I'm a crazy person. There is no way that this is true. You've seen the title of this video. There is no way. And yet... Hey everybody, it's the Lyoko Gem and welcome to another video. Seems that a couple of times a year I get to come out of hibernation and talk about Sonic for a few minutes before disappearing out into the void, never to be seen on YouTube again. Ain't that fun? What could be the topic that would disturb my slumber today? Well, that of course would be none other than Sonic Frontiers. The new open zone Sonic game coming to us this fall, where we'll be exploring the vast new Starfall Islands, fighting off some of the strongest foes Sonic has ever seen with a dazzling new combat system and blitzing through cyberspace at breakneck speeds. It's all about taking Sonic into a new frontier this fall, and I think after such a long time, I'm definitely excited to see what awaits us when we'll finally be able to pick it up. Of course, throughout the marketing of this game, Sega has made sure to keep some things very mysterious as to what's going on with its story. Many have had all sorts of theories about it, most of them having to do with a certain Jackal and a Ruby being the cause of things. Heck, I'm guilty of that myself. But I think I've personally figured out what exactly is going on in Sonic Frontiers. You've read the title of this video and already know what's up. Everything that has happened in Sonic Frontiers is the direct result of a Genesis Wave, or at the very least, a Genesis Wave-like event.
What the heck is a Genesis Wave?
Wait, Soul? What are you doing here?
I came to help you talk about Snacko Frontiers, but I didn't watch the video up to this point, so I have no idea what you're talking about.
Go back to your channel. But leave the door open so that these guys can follow you back and check out stuff like that Sonic Adventure review you recently did.
Alright, bye.
Anyway, Genesis Waves are a concept that come from the Archie Sonic comics, and essentially are a way to alter reality using the Chaos Emeralds. The more emeralds you got, the more reality can be altered. Make sense? So if you've got a single Chaos Emerald, you can maybe alter a tiny thing about the world, like say making it ketchup has become mustard, and mustard has become ketchup. Really confuse people at cookouts, you know? And it only gets more and more powerful up until the point where you get to 7 Chaos Emeralds and are able to unleash what is called a Super Genesis Wave. And with that, one can basically do whatever they want with reality. Of course, such a power comes with limitations. For example, a Genesis Wave cannot remove a person from existence. You can rewrite someone all you want, but you'll never truly be rid of them unless you've got all 7 Chaos Emeralds. In addition, a Genesis Wave cannot remove memories, but instead leave those affected with a strange feeling of deja vu or amnesia. Which is where the ketchup and mustard thing comes back in again. People will still have the vague inkling that ketchup used to be mustard and mustard used to be ketchup, but reality has changed, and as far as they're concerned, ketchup has always been mustard, and mustard has always been ketchup, so they second-guess when picking condiments, until being able to accept the change and move on, hence the confusion at cookouts. Furthermore, abuse of said phenomena can really endanger reality itself, or even the multiverse. So if you're getting crazy with condiments and can't decide if ketchup is mustard, or now mustard is relish, and mayo is now ketchup, and mustard is relish, and you keep switching things around repeatedly, you could accidentally tear open a rift in time and space that so much as mentioning a condiment can cause a distortion. Make sense? But when you have all 7 Chaos Emeralds and are able to perform a Super Genesis Wave, aside from the potential for abuse, there really are no potential drawbacks. You could try and rewrite reality to turn yourself into a godlike being, like Eggman and Dr. Wily tried to do during the Sonic and Mega Man crossover event. It truly is all-powerful. Personally, I believe that these abilities are a pretty natural extension of the idea of using the Chaos Emeralds to turn thoughts into power, you know? So, with something as ridiculous and all-powerful as the ability to rewrite reality, why do I think that's the thing that's going on in Sonic Frontiers? Well, the first and most obvious reason is that this is the game that has probably had the Emeralds play the largest role in the plot since, what? Generations? Unleashed? Heck, maybe it might be the greatest focus we've seen on the Emeralds ever. It's the fact that we'll be collecting them all over these islands on multiple occasions that just makes it clear that these are going to play a major factor in the plot. Furthermore, Frontiers has a heavy focus on the idea of memories playing a major part in the plot. One of the big things that we talked about with the Genesis Wave phenomena before was the fact that it does not have the ability to wipe memories, yet we see mysterious cyberspace levels have been nothing but Sonic's jumbled memories of the past. But even then, I do not think that the Genesis Wave or the Genesis Wave-like event is going to be one-to-one with the comics. I do think that this event was kicked off using a power that involves Starfall Islands, or even still using the Emeralds, hence why I say a Genesis Wave or an event like it. I think that whether it was intentional or not, Eggman or someone else used this power before the events of the game to try and wipe Sonic from history itself. Only something went wrong and caused all of this mess to take place. Likely that they didn't have all 7 emeralds, or used any of the proper tools that they needed, or something else. We've heard about a cutscene at the beginning of the game where Sonic, Tails, and Amy are flying in the tornado to look for emeralds, only for some sort of an energy wave to hit them and Sonic ends up waking up in cyberspace. I think that when the energy wave hits, that is when the attempt to get rid of him using a Genesis Wave is started off. So what exactly does this mean if a Genesis Wave directly targeting Sonic was performed and didn't go exactly as planned? A lot of bad things, actually. One of the major factors that we've seen is the fact that Sonic is clearly glitching out in the story trailer and the little bits of footage that we've seen at Gamescom and other conventions. See, this script is old, so like I had Gamescom, but like we've also had Tokyo Game Show and stuff like that, but that's besides the point. I don't know if I'm going to keep that in the video. He's not having a good time and is clearly in physical pain from what has happened to him here. But why can't you simply remove Sonic from the timeline or reality itself without making things messy? Well, Sonic himself has had a pretty significant impact on the world, and simply removing him from the equation causes a lot of messes unless you're willing to rewrite a significant portion of both reality and history. Not only have his actions affected a lot of people on the planet, but a lot of the places. I mean, there's a reason they call it his world, after all. But of course, there's even more to it than that. First, let's start with cyberspace and what I think it is. As we know, the realm of cyberspace is a collection of locations from the past based purely off of Sonic's memories. Of course, these locations seem to be a little different than they were before. I mean, we've got Green Hill, which for some reason has no water, but is floating in some kind of void. I believe this is the part where I'd make a joke about how Green Hill is looking a lot more like Voided Hill right about now, but I've removed that from the script, but it's back here now. Sky Sanctuary seems to be having all sorts of strange, glitchy distortions running through it. And then there's what we believe is City Escape, and that, that's a mess. What? All of these mismatched, jumbled, and confused levels are all places that Sonic has been to before, and he has affected in some way, shape, or form. Again, we call back to some of the side effects of a Genesis Wave, where we note that not only does it not have the ability to erase memories, but that it can also cause a strange case of amnesia or deja vu for people. Sonic's memories clearly have not been erased, and Sonic having amnesia is something that has been talked about throughout a lot of the game's promotion. I believe that these jumbled, confused levels of the past are a direct result of Sonic's memories being unable to be completely wiped, so instead, this happened. Sonic has that inkling of deja vu that he's been to these places before, but it doesn't quite line up with how they actually are supposed to be. That, I believe, is a take on the same effect that the Genesis Waves have in the comics. But it goes even further than that. We've established the idea that Sonic is now a sort of glitch in the system, and we have the statement that Sonic has escaped from cyberspace. It makes me believe that, even though they are created from Sonic's memories, that these levels are still very much a part of Sonic's real world, and that the Starfall Islands are on a completely separate plane of existence from them. But then, of course, we ask, how can this both be things happening in Sonic's reality, while also being strung completely from his memories? I mean, could they really be both? Well, it's quite simple, really. Sonic is not just a glitch in the system, but he's a virus, and his continued existence is making things worse for everyone and everything around him. For these locations, I believe that they are within Sonic's real world, and by removing him from the equation, the areas have become jumbled and confused as to where they stand within Sonic's real world, and by having him further interact with these locations, it only further corrupts the data. It's like data being corrupted in a computer, and by having Sonic, the virus, come into further contact with them, It's making them more incompatible with the world at large and unreadable, thereby spreading Sonic's distortion across Sonic's world and making things even worse. Sonic is beamed into these specific locations on his world from Starfall, outside of existence, making the data worse, and then gets ejected from the system once he completes the level. But of course, I've been talking about this and saying that this has infected everyone and everything around him, and right now we've only talked about locations. So let's talk about people, or more specifically, Sonic's friends. As we know, we've seen that Sonic's friends have been scattered across the different islands, and Sonic is going to have to rescue them by collecting their discarded memories. When freed, it seems that his friends take on a strange, ethereal form, as if they're not fully there. People who have lost their connection to the physical plane of existence. And why? Well, it's like we've been saying all along. Their connection to Sonic is what weakens their ties to the world as a whole. Since we've already accepted that Sonic has been corrupted and deemed a virus to both worlds, his friends have also been considered as such by association, and has locked them in these strange capsules to keep them from spreading like Sonic. In fact, has anybody noticed that the strange capsules that they are in look a lot like how we represent viruses inside our bodies? Heck, considering the game was being developed during the time of a certain world event that we're all very familiar with, I'm sure that this was a very intentional choice. But anyway, the only way to free them is by collecting the memories directly associated with the times that they've spent with him. And that's because a Genesis Wave cannot completely eliminate those memories. So that's being represented in-game by collecting the tokens all over Starfall Islands. By restoring their memories, he's also restoring their ties to him, and they will use Sonic himself as an anchor to Starfall. Of course, this is not a good thing. Remember what Sage had to say about him.
Your reckless actions endanger the world.
And I agree with her. Sonic has been removed from reality itself, and the best course of action that would be safe for Starfall and the world at large would be for him to accept deletion. But he does not, and by restoring his friends and all of the memories, he's only continuing to cause harm, not just to Starfall, but to their world as a whole. Sonic needs to stop doing what he's doing, because if he doesn't, he could just end up corrupting anything and everything there ever was, leaving reality as a distorted, incompatible mess where everyone is in the same pain that he is in, or quite literally, could just have the system or reality itself crash and just be nothing. That's all I have to say about the Super Genesis Wave for now. While it's the main basis of this theory, let's put a pin in it as we'll be coming to it later. With all the reveals from Gamescom in the story trailer, there's another thing that seems to have been largely glazed over by the fandom that I feel we shouldn't ignore. One of the major taglines in the story trailer is that we should uncover the secrets of the Ancients. And that is quite interesting because the Ancients are something that we've actually heard of before, and that would be in the Sonic Boom games and TV show. Now, I know exactly the type of things you're going to say with this one. Lyoko Gem, Sonic Boom is just a completely different universe than the modern games, or Lyoko Gem, Sonic Boom is a long dead branch of the franchise, they're not introducing a concept like that. And honestly, you'd be right. The Ancients is such a general term that it could have meant anything. Under most circumstances, this would be a detail that would be entirely ignored. But this is Ian Flynn we're talking about, and the man is known for his references and callbacks to things that would be considered obscure to even the average Sonic fan. If literally any other writer on the planet were writing this story, I'd have probably ignored it too. But with him and the fact that it's been referenced in the marketing of the game multiple times makes me at least want to touch on it. While it would be hilarious for our main man Lyric to return in Sonic Frontiers, I don't think that the Ancients will be the same ones as their source material. Just like the Genesis Wave, I think that they're going to be adapted in some form. But to understand how they might exist within this game or modern canon as a whole, we have to begin with one very simple question. Who were the Ancients in Sonic Boom? Well, not much is actually known about them, other than that we know they were a highly advanced civilization who were dedicated to protecting the world's resources. They were capable of creating advanced technologies, like a lot of the structures we see in Sonic Boom, robots, and even time travel. Pretty incredible stuff, if you ask me. Of course, the ancients eventually died out despite their desire for preservation, which is pretty ironic if you ask me. But it's that idea of preservation that makes me believe the ancients will play a role in the game and its lore. Much like the civilization in that of the Sonic Boom universe, I believe that the ancients of the modern canon have died out a long time ago. But I think that they left behind a civilization located on none other than the Starfall Islands. Of course, like any civilization that has been long abandoned, the world continued to grow around it, creating ruins overrun with plant life, dusted with the sands of time, left floating out in oblivion, or whatever it may look like for some of the other environments on Starfall Islands. Personally, I don't think that the ancients were the gods of this world, but I do believe that they were responsible for preserving the world and making sure that it would continue to turn, but something caused them to die out. Well, they also could be the Cocos or something, but I actually have no real theory on that, other than that is a possibility. The ancients were responsible for preserving Sonic's world. And how exactly did they do that? By using their advanced technology to remove corrupted data from the world. And of course, I think in the case of this game, that technology is the robotic enemies that we've been seeing all over Starfall. I believe that these enemies that we see throughout the game serve as an antivirus system that they developed in order to combat viruses like that of Sonic and his friends. And of course, running that antivirus system is some form of AI up top, whether it be Sage or the other mysterious voice that we hear throughout the game. You're meant to command these programs to contain and eliminate any viruses that might bring harm to the world, whether that be cyberspace or any viruses that dare to leak out into Starfall Islands. When it comes to things like antiviruses and cleaning up worlds, it's safe to say that the ancients have a lot of secrets to uncover. No wonder that's one of the taglines of the game. Truth be told, I believe that the secrets of the ancients are the things that I've mentioned here before, whether they're either creators or keepers of the world, and that they've left behind their technology to eliminate anomalies like Sonic. Whether or not they possess the power to wipe the world clean and reshape it is another question in and of itself, but I'm willing to guess that this is to be the case due to what's going on with Sonic. But you know what? I believe that we can wield the power of the ancients, and not just because the Steam page says so. No, I believe that despite everything that is happening in the game, we will be able to fight back against the infection that is plaguing Sonic in an attempt to wipe him from the timeline. Because I believe that whether it's through a new form or through the power of the Emeralds themselves, we're going to wield the power of the ancients and trigger a Super Genesis wave of our own and put the world back together. But more on that later. Let's talk about one final aspect of the game before we put it all together. The concept of looping in circles comes up quite a bit in the game in its marketing, and I mean a lot. And I'm not just talking about the Psyloop. It's there in the mysterious symbol that we're still not really sure about, and the game's logo too. Yeah, it's just the big game mechanic that we're using, but I also feel like there might be a little more to this from a thematic standpoint as well. These circles, these loops. When I think of the word looping, I think of the idea of doing something over and over again. A cycle, if you will. A Sonic cycle. Oh my god, is this commentary on the Sonic cycle? No. Well, maybe. But that's not the point. It's the idea that something can constantly go on forever and ever, coming back to the start and going to the finish only to start over again. A sort of inescapable fate that one must go through each and every day. Sonic and his friends, despite everything, have been able to escape from this fate. In this case, both their world itself deemed cyberspace, and the fact that the world will continue to turn, regardless of whether or not they're in it. You know, so long as they don't make things worse. So it's either submit to this inescapable fate and allow the world to continue to turn, or break it and allow for something new. But even more so, I think that it's not just Sonic's world that's a part of this loop. I think that multiple timelines and worlds are connected to that of the Starfall Islands, and that the ancients were responsible for doing what they pleased with these worlds. Cutting them off, starting them, ending them, rewinding, and making them whatever they liked. But the cycle would go over and over again. The idea of this inescapable fate, the constantly being caught at the whim of these ethereal beings greater than you could ever imagine. Alright everybody, we've got a Genesis wave, the Ancients, and the idea of a loop. Things constantly going over and over again. What does this all mean? How do we put this all together? I've dropped a lot of answers throughout the video, or at least these conclusions that I've come to, but now I think it's time to put it all together. Let's discuss what I believe the story for Sonic Frontiers will be like. We open on Dr. Eggman, who has been researching ways in which to eliminate his enemies once more. It's not enough to simply destroy them, or best them in a feat of intellect, skill, or raw power. No, he wants them gone. He wants them completely eliminated from history, so that way, nothing stands in his way. And in his research, we stumble across the Starfall Islands and the fabled power of the Ancients, capable of changing the world in any way he sees fit. Naturally, Eggman decides to make his wish, performing an event similar to the Genesis waves to eliminate Sonic from all existence. The only problem is that he either didn't understand what he was doing, didn't have enough power to do so, or went about the wrong means of doing so, and quite literally caused reality to break apart. Not only that, but it directly responded to his wish to eliminate Sonic and threw him into the realm known as Cyberspace. Sonic awakens on Starfall Islands, having successfully escaped from cyberspace, and arrived on this plane of the gods where he must not only explore a vast new land that even he has never explored before, but he must recollect his own memories along with those of the ones that he loves. As he adventures across the lands, of course he encounters an army of strange robots that are led by none other than Sage. Sage demands that he leave the islands at once, as his interference only seems to bring more and more damage to the Starfall Islands and the world at large. But he doesn't listen, insisting that he must find his friends before he could even think of leaving Starfall. Quickly he finds Amy, only for her to be trapped in these strange virus-like cages. Sonic knows that he must free her, and upon doing so, he finds that not only does she have very little memory of him, but that her physical connection to the world is slim, making her appear as a ghost within the world. So what does Sonic do? Collect Amy's memories scattered both around Kronos Island and in cyberspace, all while being confronted by the likes of Sage and these ancient antivirus robots. It's only after Sonic is confronted by a Titan that he realizes he must gather the 7 Chaos Emeralds in order to stop them. Once Sonic has collected Amy's memories and uses Supersonic to properly confront a Titan, he's able to free her and move on to the next island. The only problem is, by doing so, he has made the infection not only on himself, but the world at large spread further. As he attempts to restore the places, people, and memories connected to himself, he only hurts both the plane of existence that the Starfall Islands exist on to become even more unstable. And yet, the cycle continues. He moves from Kronos to Ares Island and repeats the process for Knuckles, causing the corruption to spread further and further. And then he moves on to the 3rd island, and does the same for Tails. I think it's around Tails' case that we start learning what's truly going on, as he will be the one to reveal the existence of the Ancients, and how they were sort of custodians of their world, and all the other ones too, removing aberrations and problems that were causing harm to the planet, and that to the likes of the Ancients, their world was nothing more than a simple simulation, a computer program that could be viewed, edited, copied, or even deleted should they see fit. To these great celestial beings, they really were nothing more than tiny, insignificant bugs, marching to the tune of a rhythm that they had no true control over. I believe that questions of free will and what that means for them will be asked, and if Sonic and his friends really should submit and be deleted like they were supposed to be. But at this point, Sonic's meddling has made things so bad that they're unsure if it's even reversible at this point. So what else is he to do but run, and run off to the next 2 islands he does, where I believe he will free both Eggman and Sage herself. Eggman will realize that by trying to remove Sonic from the equation in the way that he did, that he ultimately removed himself as well, as despite everything, his own fate is closely tied to that of Sonic's. He feels some form of regret for causing the end of all things and is unsure of what should be done. He can't become a god through this power like he had hoped, and stopping Sonic from doing all of this will only make things worse, yet allowing him to continue will also cause more issues. He feels some form of remorse and isn't quite sure what to do with that. But of course, Sonic keeps on running, and ultimately, he's spread the virus all over Starfall, and all over his own world by continuing to enter the world through the cyberspace portals. Reality as he knows it is going to collapse in on itself, and there will be nothing left, thanks to everything Sonic has done in the name of his friends. It's all over. Nothing can be done. Not even Super Sonic will be able to get them out of this mess. What is Sonic to do now? Quite simple, really. He needs to wield the power of the ancients and forge a new frontier. I believe that with the help of Sage, or perhaps somehow turning the infection that has been ravaging his body against him, Sonic will use that power, along with that of the Chaos Emeralds, to take on a new form. Sonic will wield the same power that has been used to remove him and corrupt him, and quite literally, forge a new frontier, taking the collapsing Starfall Islands, his own world, and even other timelines, and bringing them all together, forming one new world to continue the Sonic canon. The game will end how it began, with Sonic performing his own Super Genesis wave. Now, I know what you're thinking. Waze, that's absolutely nuts. Sonic Frontiers is not the in-canon reason for a reboot of the Sonic franchise, but I personally think that it is, and I'm going to give you a few reasons as to why they're doing this, and why they've been planning to do this for quite some time now. First, let's go over all the hints towards this that have been scattered across the game's marketing. What better way to start with than with the opening and closing themes for the games? To start with, can I just say that both I'm Here and Vandalize are fantastic, and I cannot wait to hear them within the game? Ian Flynn has noted in a Twitter post that their lyrics are going to hit different after we beat the game, and based on my own theory, I think it lines up with that. Don't know why I continued the country accent this far, but let's keep on going. First, let's start with Vandalize, and since it has less to do with my theory, I think that would be the good one to start with. First things first, I do not think that Vandalize was written with Frontiers in mind. I do think that Sega added it to the game because it fit, but I do not think that this is a Frontiers song specifically, like I'm Here is. I mean, the song is mostly about an abusive relationship and has some very colorful lines that are not meant for a Sonic song. Well, in the explicit version anyway. The Sonic version is very clean, safe for the kids. Don't worry about it. But no, like many, I think most of the song, when it relates to the game, will have something to do with the betrayal that Sonic will face when it comes with the AI voice in the game that isn't Sage. That he had trusted her to help him, only for her to backstab him and turn into whatever eldritch abomination will use ancient corruption Super Sonic to fight. But there is one line in particular that sticks out to me, and that would be the following. Because I'm not playing with YouTube copyright, I'm just going to talk about this one because I'm just going to talk the line for this one because it's not an actual Sonic song, but is licensed by the band that's writing Frontier. Anyway, then we make a work of art just so you could deface it. Did you let it fall apart just so you could replace it? Damn, I'm going to start singing along if I'm not careful. I don't know about you, but that sounds to me like it's referring to the new world. While again, we're not meant to take these lyrics literally, they certainly are relevant, and I think that this is implying that the AI voice is likely guiding Sonic to do just that. With the ancients having been these otherworldly beings, they created a work of art, which is Sonic's world, and all the other worlds, only for it to be ruined, corrupted, and defaced, and of course, so that it could be replaced with something new. The Genesis wave that Sonic will kick off at the end of the game. But that's just a theory that's taking the lyrics that aren't actually written for the game. How about the ones that actually are? Let's turn our attention to I'm Here and play some of the lyrics that I actually do think directly reference the universal reset that is the Super Genesis wave. I'm standing on the border of everything. These are the two that I feel build upon the theory the most. I'm standing on the border of everything, I feel refers to the idea of Starfall quite literally being the edge of everything. That's the border of not just one, but several realities, and that it can affect all of them. Then, of course, the life you knew before, and a new world worth fighting for, being Sonic's former world now ceasing to exist thanks to someone trying to get rid of him, and Sonic attempting and failing to fix it. But thanks to the Genesis wave that he pulls off at the end of the game, there's a new world worth fighting for. Of course, there are others that I feel lean into some of the ideas that we've talked about, like how the line of the voices of the past could be referring to the ancients, or the general feeling of venturing out into something new. In fact, one could argue that, in general, the song is just giving the general feeling of venturing out into new horizons and is more about journeying across the Starfall Islands into something new. And you'd be right. But who's to say that the song has to have one meaning, right? And Ian Flynn did say that the lyrics are going to hit different after we finish the game. It's for that reason that I believe that these lines have a double meaning. In fact, that they're intentionally misdirecting us with the idea of, oh yeah, it's all about venturing into a new frontier, and it's all about Starfall and the crazy adventure we're going to have, and not about the literal new world that we're going to form at the end of the game. But that's all I really have to say about the songs, but there's still more to it than that. Now, I have already mentioned phrases like wield the power of the ancients, and how worlds will collide in Sonic Frontiers, and that of course we should forge a new frontier. But there's more to it than that. Right off the bat, there's been a lot of symbolism towards this in various things too. Remember all that talk about looping and circles and all that jazz? For one, I think that the Super Genesis wave is going to be done by doing a gigantic Psy-loop around like all the dimensions or something in some sort of final crazy cyberspace battle that like we're gonna be super corrupted ancient warrior Sonic and we're gonna be performing a Psy-loop around all of these corrupted and crazy dimensions to like bring them back together into one, and it's gonna be crazy and it's gonna be cool and oh god, I'm sorry. But no, for real. The logo, it's the logo specifically that I want to draw attention to. All of the letters of the word frontiers are broken, but the one letter that isn't, the O. And wouldn't it be quite the coincidence that the O is represented by the Psy-loop and has two different pieces jutting from it, implying not just one, but two different things coming together, mainly that being Sonic's world and Starfall Islands. But why do we have this ending of Sonic quite literally creating a new world in the end? What does this do from a narrative perspective? For one, I think it'd be the ultimate defiance of the fate that Sonic has been presented with throughout the game. The fact that he should just submit and be deleted like he was supposed to be when things were kicked off at the beginning of the game. And not only does he refuse to be wiped from existence, but now that all of reality has been torn apart, he uses the same powerful that was once so painful to him, that he used to expedite the process, to literally turn things around and create a new world from the remains of the old. It's beautiful. It's poetic. It's a Sonic game. Okay, maybe I might be getting a little too into it, but I really do think that it would be a good way to tie up the narrative that at least I have presented, wielding the power of the ancients and forging a new frontier. Wow. But it's more than just a narrative and more than just a cool and flashy finale. Why would this be done in reality? Well, for one, have you noticed that for quite some time, since maybe like 2022 or maybe even 2021, that there has been a very slight insistence to clean up Sonic's lore and story? No, seriously, they have in multiple ways. I mean, first and foremost, there's been the Encyclopedia, which seems to have a heavy emphasis on tying anything and everything in Sonic canon together. I mean, the book so clearly lists everything that has ever happened and where exactly it fits in the universe. And wouldn't it be pretty crazy that the same book is written by Ian Flynn, who's also writing the game? Not only that, but there's also the Tales Tube videos, which do a lot of the same explanation of where things fit into Sonic's universe. And oh, look at that! There's Ian Flynn again! Heck, Tangle and Whisper, two characters from the comics, have been included in the likes of Sonic Force's Speed Battle for years now, and before, having comic characters in official licensed games by Sega was unheard of. Well, except for that one time in Sonic Spinball, but that's besides the point. We're not talking about that right now. Not to mention the Bumblecast. The same writer has been making a considerable effort to decanonize the likes of things like the human world and animal world in Sonic, classic and modern dimensions, and the like. He's very clearly trying to make an effort to say that there is only one Sonic canon, and that encompasses all things like games, shows like Prime, the IDW comics, the list goes on. Everything is canon. Well, everything except for the movies, and honestly, that's the big reason why Sega wants to clear up the Sonic canon. Love them or hate them, the Sonic movies have been massive successes that have put more eyes on this franchise for both a new generation of gamers and more mainstream audiences too. Sure, Sonic has been a household name since he sped onto the Genesis back in '91, but that's something that's certainly dwindled in time. But with the movies bringing such large-scale attention, we have more eyes on the blooper lure than we have in a very long time. And ironically, it's all thanks to that shaved rat design kinda kicking off the attention for these films. It was not a publicity stunt though, we have to make that clear. Like, they have props and stuff and merchandise for that. Sorry, that's not important, but I needed to say that. But we have all sorts of people looking at this franchise now and what it's doing. So much so that Paramount seems to think that a cinematic universe is a viable financial decision. And with all of these eyes on your product, you can't just have all these different universes and continuities running amok and scaring off potential consumers who are more acquainted to the clean lore and writing of the films. Nah, you gotta keep that audience and clean up your act. And that is precisely why Sega wants to do that with the game franchise as a whole, and they started that with Sonic Frontiers. Accessibility is key. Honestly, if we're truly to believe in this theory of Sonic Frontiers being the thing to set off one world and continue to bring things together, then I wouldn't be surprised if other characters and concepts from other media made their way into Sonic canon in some way, shape, or form. If the freaking ancients from Sonic Boom can be a major factor in this game, then who's to say the likes of Styx couldn't make it in? Or maybe characters that used to be considered classic exclusives like Mighty and Ray or the Hooligans. Maybe spin-off characters and concepts like the Babylon Rogues and Extreme Gear can find their way into this new world. The sky is truly the limit. I truly believe that doing this and setting up a reboot of sorts for Sonic through this storyline is exactly what they're trying to do here. But then there comes the question of, well, if Sonic Frontiers was supposed to kick this off, why did this happen early? Well, I'll give you one big reason, and that has to do with the big old virus that I mentioned way earlier in this video. And unfortunately, I'm not talking about Sonic's, but one that sent the actual world into a tailspin a couple of years ago. Sonic Frontiers was supposed to be an anniversary game, but got delayed till around now. And most of this stuff started happening as we entered the 2020s. By then, the story of the game had to have at least had drafts written or planned out, but with the big delay and the shift in priorities for Sonic and Sega, there's a chance that the opportunity to reset canon in such a definitive way kicked off back then. So I think stuff like Encyclopedia were supposed to come out after Frontiers, and because of delays and things like that, that's ultimately led to where we are now. I expect things like Tales 2 and like Encyclopedia to come out even more after Frontiers has come out for a while and people have had time to beat it. So maybe like mid-2023? But that's kind of everything I have in this theory. Now comes the most important question. Do I believe that everything that I have talked about in this video will happen in Sonic Frontiers? No. Honestly and truly speaking, while I do think I have something going here, I think that a lot of my ideas and theories are nothing more than that. Ideas and theories. Sega has made very sure that we have very limited information on what exactly is going on in this story, that we can really only glean hints about it from hyper-analyzing trailers and interviews and songs that have been released, but not much past that. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a bit unsure of my points about the ancients and the symbolism behind looping and circles and how they tie into this story. But I still greatly hold on to my core belief that what we see happening in Frontiers is in fact the cause of a failed Genesis wave, and that Sonic will be performing another to tie everything together, because too many things line up with the Genesis wave for me to believe it to be coincidence. But that's what I think, at least. What do you all think? Do you think I'm right about even any of this, or do you think I have gone way too far off the deep end and have found myself lost in cyberspace too? Let me know in the comments below, and if you like this video and want to hear more from the Lyoko Gem, then be sure to like and subscribe, and give my social medias a follow at Tumblr, Twitter, and Discord, all linked below. I can't promise that I'll be back with a video, but who knows, maybe if enough people like this one, then I can do that movie Eggman video I've had written for months now, and have been leaving by the wayside for too long. But thanks so much for watching, and with all of that being said, this has been the Lyoko Gem, a warping out.